Even when a judgment has been given on your behalf, steps need to be taken to enforce that judgment. So if there is a stay of execution, then you know that could mean that that judgment will not be enforced yet. So you might look at it that they are disobeying that court order, but we don't usually term it disobedience if the necessary application has not been done to enforce that judgment. The judiciary are separate from the executive, and sometimes in the eyes of the public they might tend to intermingle both of them. While the executive are still involved when it comes to enforcing judgments, there is still a process that starts with the judiciary. First, you revert back to the judiciary to enforce your judgment before the executive arm of the government will be involved, where you're asking the president to intervene in a judgment of the court without following this due process. You see, Charles, that alone disobeys the separation of power, and it's against the rule of law. When there is a court order maybe to release a certain individual, we see it play out more often than not, and then these individuals get rearrested, and then we look at it that, oh, that court order was not obeyed. When there is a fresh arrest made, they could be acting within the ambit of the law. We could have a reservation about it. So it's easy to obey this court order and then you rearrest on a separate charge. You see, they've acted within the ambits of the law. But when you look at it, you just see a court order has been disobeyed because this person has not been released. That's what we see. But from a legal point of view, we see it differently, that there's still a legal guard that they are acting and they are stretching it within its elastic limit. We may not agree with it, but the law is the law. Sometimes it acts in ways we don't approve of, but it doesn't change the fact that it's the law. The legal process, it could be cumbersome, it could be complex, but at the end of the day, justice is usually served. It may seem to delay, but it is not denied.
Like you just rightly mentioned, justice delayed is not justice denied. But in Nigeria, justice delayed could be justice denied. You agree with me on that?
No, I don't.
Do you think Nigerians still believe the judiciary to be the hope of the common man?
Oh, yes. A very big yes on that, Charles. If people do not believe the judiciary has some sort of remedy to give, then we would not have those cases being filed on a continuous basis. That is why the courts are overburdened as it is, because everybody is filing a fresh charge. So people still believe that the judiciary could do something. And yes, it still works. People go to courts and they get their remedies fixed. They get their wronged rights corrected. You know, for example, you started with the Sadia's case, the former minister having corruption cases. The executive can do more speedily, like the EFCC conduct their investigation on time. There should be no too much delay. And then when they go to court and then, you know, try to avoid too many injunctions, too many other small proceedings that it's at the time. Sometimes you see parties will not appear when they are supposed to appear. The judiciary is already overstretched as it is. Can it do more? Yes. But I think the parties involved, they also have a role to play.
Yeah, because those injunctions, because some of those injunctions also have, the judiciary also have a role to play. When you have some injunctions or counter injunctions coming, in a case you really know that this ought not to be. You know, that is where, you know.
That's a dicey one, Mr. Charles. I know what you're asking me, but it's really dicey because the principle of fair hearing is enshrined in the Constitution.
Okay.
Parties need to be heard fairly. Parties need to be heard adequately. So if I am a party and then I want to buy time or waste the time of the court, of course there are some rules in place now that try to limit these unnecessary hearings. Else before you would have a matter in court and there are some little injunctions that are already being had at the Court of Appeal. You know, the court has set, there are now some rules
of proceedings. With the substantive case waiting.
Yes, but all these things have been curbed. So that is why I said the judiciary is doing all it can to see that these things, there's a stop to it. If you are an investigator from the executive arm of government, it means you need to do due diligence and you need to do your job well. Else, lawyers will do their job and they will find loopholes and the person is off the case. Yeah, because
the business of a lawyer is looking for loopholes.
That is the law. It's not really, we are still operating within the ambit of the law. We may not like it when the law is not, it seems not to be working in our favor. We may not like it, I know, but it is the law and it's not selective. They have the power to investigate whoever, and when they choose to investigate whoever, that's the law for you. More could be done by the judiciary. I did say this, and maybe more lawyers should be involved in rendering legal aid and trying to get inmates out of the prison. Now, a judge orders you to remand an inmate maybe for like 14 days, 7 days, 2 weeks. The executive follows through. Should the executive fail to follow through or do not follow sufficiently or overfollows the order, that's with the executive. So your question is right, is a challenge we are facing in the country. It needs to be addressed, but not by me. Okay. You know, so you need someone from the executive arm of the government to address this issue because it's a legitimate issue. The judiciary works just fine. You just need to be before it. You know, they say you have to stand before the woman and then she will judge your case. If you're not before it, how does she help you out? More speedy dispensation of justice, that's the highlight of it all. I think if we can fix that in Nigeria for the judiciary, then the judiciary will solve like 99.9% of the judiciary's problem.
This is where we focus critically on numerous unresolved cases in the Nigerian and African judiciaries. My name is Charles Agedu. Join me on Code Files, a chronology of unresolved crime cases, only on Third Eye Africa TV.